few more show up. That's great. Thank you all so much for being here. This is a great turnout, and I'm thankful that you're here. I hope this is worth your time, and I hope you feel that as well. And so we're going to talk through a couple things tonight over the next few weeks about just this topic of anxiety and depression. It's something that I have become very passionate about and want to help educate and make sure that we as a church are doing well with people and all those things. And so again, thank you so much for coming. I will say this is going to be kind of done in lecture format tonight, and so it's going to kind of almost be sermon-y feeling a little bit. Not that I don't want to let you ask questions. We'll have a time for that at the end if you have some questions. But I am recording this. We're live streaming this through our church's Facebook page, so we have an online video of this. And so I don't want people asking a bunch of personal questions or things, and then our online stuff picking it up for the world. So if you have a question, we're going to live stream the presentation, then we're going to kill the live feed, and then if you want to do something there at the end, that'll be an option. So I'm not trying to be rude or anything of that nature, and if you have something that's just pressing and you want to ask and you don't care if it's on the thing, that's fine. But just FYI on that deal. So I want to give you we're going to take tonight 5-10 minutes, kind of give an intro to this thing that we won't do the rest of the weeks, but I want to kind of help explain a couple things. And so this is designed to be a 4-week curriculum. And so the way this works and what we're going to be looking at is this topic of increasing knowledge and awareness on anxiety and depression in the local church. And so it's made up of 4 parts, and so each part is going to kind of build on itself a little bit. And so tonight we're going to be looking at the causes, some of the causes of our anxiety and depression. If you came here tonight going, what's the answer to everything? First off, I don't know that I can give you that. And second off, we're probably not going to get there tonight. We're going to build to this. We got to first understand what we're talking about to then walk through and to get to where we want to get to, some of these healing components. And so if you think of it like a math problem, the teacher says, hey, just because you know the answer, you got to show me your work, right? We don't want to just jump to the answer. We're going to look at some of these things and kind of build to that. So tonight, as I said, we're going to be talking about the causes. What are some of these causes that lead us to our anxiety and depression that we walk through? And everything that we're looking at is in two lenses. So it's going to be a practical, worldly, how do I do this in the life that I'm living? And also in the spiritual context of we walk in a spiritual realm, and we need to be aware of that. So tonight is causes. Next week will be expressions. The anxiety, depression that I'm feeling, how is it often expressed? What can I look for? What can I do to help myself on some of these things? The third week is healing. How do we heal from a practical, worldly standpoint? And then the last week will be from a spiritual perspective. And so all of these things kind of build on what we're going through. So this came about for me, because I feel like about 3-4 years ago, the church overall has done a poor job of helping people walk through this. I think the church is getting better at it and recognizing it a little bit more. But this idea of anxiety and depression and all these things has kind of had a stigma in the church. And maybe some of you have faced that before or seen that. But it's almost this idea of, or perception that if I'm struggling with anxiety and or depression and I go to the church and try to talk to somebody about it, they're going to tell me one of two things. Either A, you just don't have enough faith. You need more faith. The only reason you're anxious and depressed is because your faith isn't strong enough. Or B, you just need to pray about it more. The reason that you're struggling with these things is because you're just not spending enough time with Jesus. If you would just spend more time with Jesus, everything would get better. Now, while I believe there's some truth to those things, we do need to be praying. We do need to be spending time with Jesus. If that's kind of where we leave it, I think we leave a massive void and opportunity for ourselves to find healing. And I truly believe, and this is kind of where this came about, that the church can and must do better at helping its people better navigate and walk through these things that they feel. And so for me, it came about, as I said, just a little bit of my story on this topic and why I'm talking about this and these things. So about 3 or 4 years ago when I started my doctoral program, they tell you, hey, you've got to write on something. You've got to do a topic. You've got to do a dissertation, a project, so on and so forth. What are you going to do? Well, at that same time that I was starting this program is about the same time that I started here at Emmanuel Baptist Church here in Perkins. And coming into this position as at that time, I guess, 29, 30-year-old, I thought to myself, I'm going to crush it, okay? Like, I'm going to, like, the pastoring and all these things, I'm ready for this, it's going to be awesome, all these things, like, give me it all, let's go and do this, right? And about 6 months into the job, nothing had really gone wrong. Nothing had been bad. I hadn't had anybody, per se, not really like me or big fights or problems in the church, so on and so forth. But I was just beginning to notice that I was a little more irritable. I was a little more antsy. I was much shorter with Ginger. My kids were irritating me more. Now, some of that was just because they were irritating me, okay? But, no, I was just getting to feeling like, I'm not sleeping as good. What's going on? And I wasn't really sure what was happening and what was taking place in my own life on some of these things. And I can remember I hadn't been at the church very long, a few months. It's in the same time window. And I was sitting in our library here with about 4 or 5 men, 50, 60, 70 years old, who'd been here for 10, 15, 20 years since the beginning of the church, very well respected in all these things. And we had something as simple as an air conditioner mess up. And I'm sitting here, I haven't been at this church very long. Again, I'm barely 30 years old, sitting in there with these men, and we're talking about what to do. And in essence, they basically look at me and go, okay, what do you want to do? And that was kind of my first moment of realizing my title and my position and what I was being called to do put me in a position that I thought I was ready for, but actually I'm not sure that I was. And the weight of now handling that responsibility, the weight of making these decisions, the weight of being responsible for a $250,000 budget, the weight of somebody coming to me and sitting down in my office on a Tuesday and going, hey, my life's about to fall apart. What do I do? And having to work with that person when in the very next day, another person comes in and says the exact same thing. And so by 2 weeks, a 2-week span, I've got 6 couples who are thinking about getting divorced. One guy's addicted to pornography. One guy can't stop doing this. This one woman's doing this, right? All these things. And without ever realizing what was happening, the weight and the burden of those responsibilities was beginning to overwhelm me. I wasn't equipped and I wasn't sure, and I was becoming functionally depressed. And I didn't realize it, and I wasn't prepared for it, and I wasn't ready or prepared to handle those things. So I actually, for the first time in my life, I went and I saw a biblical counselor. And I did that for about 6 months. Met with a guy, and he radically changed my life. He has helped me. I still meet with him now periodically just to check on things. And my whole outlook on counseling and anxiety and depression and all these things has just completely flipped because I grew up with that stigma. I grew up that if you talk about your feelings or emotions, if you get help, it means you're weak or you just don't love Jesus enough. Because people who love Jesus, they don't struggle with those things. And so if I'm struggling with it, something must be wrong with me. But there can't be something wrong with me because I'm the pastor. And everyone's talking to me about how to fix them. And I can't even fix me. So you can see the snowball here, right? So my point is this. That came about, you're not here for my sob story, but here's the reason why I wrote this. I'm passionate about helping other people. I'm passionate about helping other people prioritize and organize things in their life to see it's okay to need help. It's okay to walk through things and talk through things and to need Jesus, but each other. And so through that process, I thought, you know what? I want my project to be about something that helped me. And so that's how we kind of get to this point. Now, I want to be clear here, and I promise we're going to jump in. But I want to be clear here from the beginning tonight. I am not a clinician. Okay, I am not a licensed doctor. Okay, there are certain things that I can't talk about, and I can't necessarily help with certain psychological disorders or things of that nature. My journey and my process in this story has helped me meet a lot of incredible people that I can resource you to, but I am not foolish enough to think I have all of the answers for everything that everyone's going through. So this is designed to help us get an understanding and to organize some of the daily things in our life. Some of these things are going to be new concepts. Some of these things things are probably going to be concepts you've heard about, but maybe it's like that person you've seen at the grocery store that one time. They look familiar, but you can't really remember their name, right? Some of it's going to be, oh, yeah, that makes sense, but I've never thought of it like that, or I hadn't put words to it before. And that's what some of these things are going to be. So as we jump in tonight, we're going to look at some of these causes. If we can go to that first slide. So here's what I wanted you to see. 40 million U.S. adults struggle with some form of anxiety and depression. That number is probably a little bit low, honestly. 40 million U.S. adults struggle with some form of anxiety and depression. What does that tell us? One, this is a huge epidemic. Anxiety and depression affects a lot of people. And I want to tell you right now in this room, right here, if you are somebody who struggles with this idea, or with these forms of anxiety and depression, two things. One, there's a lot of people just like you. And two, you are not damaged. You are not broken. There is not something wrong with you. That doesn't mean somebody has more faith than you or loves Jesus more than you do. If you are struggling with these things, it just means you're struggling with these things. And these are things that we can look at and work on. And so, anxiety and depression, here's what we're going to look at. 4 main things from a practical standpoint that affect us with our anxiety and depression. And those 4 things are negative thinking, stress, unhealthy relationships, and poor time management. Now, 2 things on this. One, for the scope of my project, I had to limit the realm of what we can talk about in some aspect. When you talk about the idea of mental health, there's literally a million rabbits we could chase. And it could become very unproductive and very surface level and so on and so forth. And so the scope of this project is going to focus on these 4 things. Why? Because these are the 4 most common factors for people who struggle with some form of anxiety and depression. Everything that you're thinking, maybe what you go through, what you walk through, it most likely stems from one of these 4 categories. The reason you have XYZ, the reason you struggle with this is because of one of these most likely 4 things. So these are the 4 topics that we're gonna focus on. And as we jump in, next slide, please. I want to give some key terms to what we're talking about here. So can you go, there should be a whole thing. Can you go forward? Nope, that's the wrong one. Can you go back? Did I send you the wrong PowerPoint slide? I did. That says session 2. Do you have session 1? You don't? Well, that's not going to be very helpful then. Okay, y'all talk to yourselves. Give me 20 seconds. This is awkward. You should have it.
Boy Scout.
Yeah, it's on our YouTube page.
Okay, yeah, just go to the YouTube page. That way we don't have to hear it if you get a call. That's why I have my volume down.
Sorry about that. He'll get it pulled up just a second.
No. We're in the Lord's house, sir.
Hey, Nick, does that one say session 1? Okay. Okay, perfect. You're so stupid. Perfect. Okay, we're back up. Can you go to the next slide? There we go. So here's what I want to talk about. A few key terms. Yeah, right. Thank you, Nick. When we talk about this idea of mental health, it can have very differing meanings, different things. That might be kind of hard to read up there, but this is what it says. Mental health is a state of mental well-being that enables people to cope with the stresses of life, realize their abilities, learn well, work well, and contribute to their community. So the idea of what mental health is your ability, in essence, to function and participate in the society of which you are placed in. Okay, next slide. 3 terms here. The next one is depression. Depression is a feeling of hopelessness, a feeling of uselessness that a person allows to become the focus of their life. Depression is this idea that I am hopeless, there's no hope, it will never get better, there's nothing I can do about it, I am useless, why do I exist? And then it becomes all you can think about, to the point where it cripples you. Depression is a crippling sense of I have no point and no purpose. Next slide. Anxiety is a feeling of apprehension and fear characterized by symptoms such as palpitations, sweating, and feelings of stress. So the idea is this. Depression is that you cannot function. Not because there's something wrong with you, not because there's something broken in you, but your brain is literally telling you you have no point in moving, in functioning, in doing these things. Anxiety is these kind of things. I am literally stressed out, I'm sweating, I'm nervous, I'm all these things, but I got to get it done, right? I'm anxious about it, but I'm moving in these things. Next slide, Nick. So as we said, this is 40 million adults struggle with this, some form of these things. So we could have talked about a million different topics: finances, having a budget, chemical imbalances, biological things, all this kind of stuff. But as I said a second ago, these 4 categories affect a lot of the things. If you're anxious and depressed because you open your bank account, it probably is number 2. You're really stressed and it's making you think negatively, number 1, right? If you're having some other things with your job or whatever, right, it's probably because of either poor time management or unhealthy relationships, right? So these things that we think about in our lives stream most likely from one of these 4 categories that we're going to focus on tonight. So what we think about this idea of negative thinking, can you hit that next slide? Negative thinking, understand this, 80% of our thoughts, according to the National Science Foundation, 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 95% of our thoughts are repetitive. Think about that for a second. 80% of what you think is negative, and you don't just think about it one time, it's like repeat on your Apple Music, over and over and over again. Follow with me for a second. You wake up in the morning, you get out of bed, you go to the mirror, you don't like what you see. Why do I look this way? Why is my body this shape? Why do I look like this? You go to your wardrobe. I don't have any clothes. None of my clothes fit. I don't like what I'm wearing. These shoes don't match this. You go off to breakfast. None of this food sounds good. I don't have any food in my pantry. You go outside. You get in your car. This is a stupid car. Nobody else drives a car like this. Everybody else has a better vehicle than I do. You see this snowball, right? And you can think of 100 different more examples of what I'm talking about. Why is this? Why is that? Why is that? Our brains are wired. 80% of our thoughts are negative, and 95% of it's repetitive. Think about that. So how many of us woke up, don't like what we see in the mirror, and never thought about it again? Yeah. How many of us, we get online and we look at our bank account, don't like what we see, and never think about our finances again? It's over and over and over and over. This idea in our brains of this pattern of negative thinking, patterns of negativity about ourselves and our surroundings. We're constantly down on ourselves, pessimistic about ourselves, and it naturally makes us more negative. Dr. Natalie Marchant, she was a UCL psychiatrist and physician. She found in a study of about 300 adults ages 55 and older that persistent negative thinking was actually linked to a decline in their cognitive reasoning and actually led to Alzheimer's disease. And if you think about it, our world is geared negative. you turn on the news, how often is it positive? There can be a brand new charity built, a soup kitchen built, that's going to feed 10,000 people, and it gets a 30-second clip. A negative, and I'm not being light of this, a horrific tragedy like Camp Mystic gets talked about for 4 weeks. Negative news sells. Negativity in our culture sells. Our news is geared negative. Our social media, our finances, our economy, life in general. We have an assumption. You walked in here today, you have an assumption default in your brain that you can't trust a single politician in Washington, D.C. And now maybe rightfully so. Okay, let's know. But we assume negative. We assume the worst. We assume it's all going to fall apart. This idea of negative thinking controls probably more of your life than you really realize. And if you take just a one-day glimpse of your life and think about your own personal life today, how many things brought you down? How many things do you wish were different? How many things do you wish you would have done differently? And you thought about it more than just one time today. 80% are negative, 95% are repetitive. As I said, tonight's about causes, so I'm not giving you the answers yet. That's in the coming weeks, okay? How do we then fix that? How do we reprogram some of these things? We'll come back. We're going to talk about some more of those things later. But just think about this idea. It reinforces negative data points in your brain that you go back to over and over and over again. And it reinforces a negative outlook. Now, maybe you've never thought about it like this before, but I want to give you a couple more examples here. Think about something as simple as Photoshop. Why does that exist? Because we aren't satisfied with how we look naturally. Before I can put this image of me out to the world, I have to make it look presentable. Guys do this too, but ladies, how many times do we have to have the right angle or the good side? You can't take a picture up, okay? Don't show the chins, okay? Show it down, right? I'm being silly, but think about that, right? Why do you think that? Why is that your problem? I'm not good enough as I am, so I need to make it look better and more presentable, and I need to Photoshop things. I need the right angle because who I am is not good enough. You are putting negative data points in your life over and over and over and over. You wake up, you don't like what you see in the mirror. You take a picture, you don't like how it looks. You won't post it. You won't talk about it. You see where I'm going? So some of the things that we need to understand is this. When I do that for day after day after day after week after month after year, constantly reinforcing to my brain, I'm not enough. How do you think my body's going to perceive myself? I'm going to start to get anxious. I'm going to start to get a little bit depressed because who I am is not good enough. And so this idea of negative constant thinking leads to an overall mental decline of ourselves, which affects not only our minds, but our bodies as well. See, whether you mean it or not, that way your subconscious is storing all of those data points. It's storing it and reminding you over and over again of how you're not good enough. So now we're going to talk about some solutions in the next couple of weeks. But as we begin to reshape and refocus this idea, how do I then understand if my brain is wired this way? How do I begin to reshape my view of myself? Ladies struggle with this a lot, but so do men. Men struggle with this mental view of themselves, this portrayal of themselves in this social media-driven world. We need to begin to rethink our thought processes and how do we refocus some of those things. So one of the things is negative thinking. The second thing, Nick, if you'll hit that slide. Next slide is stress. If I'm negative all the time, you know what that kind of makes me? Stressed out because it's never enough. Stress is a state of worry or mental tension caused by a difficult situation. A study done by the American Institute of Stress said this: 33% of people feel extreme stress. 77% of people feel stress that has some impact on their physical health, and 73% of people have their mental health impacted. Now, if you're like, hey, I'm not a rocket scientist, but that doesn't equal 100%. That's way more than 100, right? It was the most, how many people categorize that category as the number one thing of their life? Anyone rhetorically, anyone feel a little stressed out? Yeah. Anyone feel a little burnt out, wore out? Not enough hours in the day? Talk about this idea of stress. Can you hit that next slide? There's three things that lead to our stress. I mean, there's more than that, but these are three of the main ones. The perfection model, the comparison game, and our overall responsibilities. You want to know what makes me more anxious and depressed than anything? When I spend a lot of time on social media and look at all the billionaires that have the big houses and the nice cars and realize I'm not that. What stresses me out is whenever I begin to live up to this perfection model that people won't love me if I'm not perfect. If I don't earn it, if I'm not worthy of it, I have no value. And for some of us, that's how we've lived our whole lives. Because unfortunately, for some of us, we grew up in a home that parents only loved us if we were worthy of their love. If I got a straight A's, if I did this, if I mowed the yard, if I did these things, then I was worthy of love. And so some of us come in here tonight, we're stressed and we're overstimulated and we're worried about these things because we're trying to walk in this false sense of perfection. I can't let anyone know that I'm not perfect. Because if anyone sees my wrinkles, they won't love me anymore. If anyone knows that I don't have it all figured out, that I don't have it all together, if I'm actually vulnerable with somebody, they're going to judge me, and it's going to be all over social media and Facebook. So instead of being honest and open with what's really going on in my life, I'm just going to pretend that I'm okay. And there's this idea of a perfection model that says I have to live up to an unattainable standard. You know, nobody ever lowers the bar for themselves. I'm not this guy, right? But I'm not this guy. And some of you today, you're so stressed and you're so wound tight because you're afraid that this glass house that you're living in is about to come crashing down. And you're doing everything you can to try and hold the pieces together to look perfect in an imperfect world. That would stress me out. That would stress me out a lot. But what gets me is the comparison game. When I get stressed the most is when I realize I'm comparing my value and my worth to other people. You ever do that? Well, if I just had more things like them, my life would be better. Well, I must not be very good or very worthy because I don't have those things. Or, here's the one, honestly, for let me try that again. Our culture today, I'm going to go into crippling debt so I can present a fake front to people that my life looks a certain way. And so on the outside, I've got the boats and the toys and the fun things and all these things. And look how awesome and together my life is because I have all these toys. But in reality, I've got bigger debt payments than my income. I'm stressed and we're fighting because we can't pay our bills. But my life looks really good to everybody else. And look at all the toys I have. You know what that is? The comparison game. And in our culture today, especially in American consumerism, we are playing I have to look a certain way. If the people my age can afford such and such, I should be able to too. I tell you this, the banks, they're very good at their job. They can approve you for just about anything that you want, whether you should get it or not. And on the flip side of that, sometimes it's simply, I can't afford anything. And because I can't, I must not be any good. I must have no worth. I must have no value because I don't have all the things that somebody else has. For some of you, maybe that's where you find yourself tonight. You're stressed out because your life doesn't look like how you thought it was going to. But because of this perfection model, we don't talk about it. My encouragement to you as you begin to think through this process and begin to wrestle with what is it that's causing me to feel anxious? What is it that's causing me to feel these things? Maybe there's a false reality that you're trying to live up to. A false life that you think is going to satisfy, but in reality is leaving you empty. See, Edward Welch, a guy who I really enjoy with this topic, he says this, and I think it's true. We worry about the opinions of others, and at the first sign of rejection, we opt for whatever we think will win us their approval and the love we desire. In short terms, what we might call that is a people pleaser. I'm going to do and be and act however I have to make people see me in a way that I think they want. That's exhausting. To not know who I am, but I'm going to be a chameleon for whoever's around me. If I'm at a party and everyone's doing this, I'm going to do that. If I'm at church and everyone's praising Jesus, I'm going to praise Jesus. If I'm at work and everyone's doing this, I'm going to do that. This idea of just shifting with the waves in the ocean, never anchoring myself in my own worth and value. Those responsibilities begin to hit us really hard. I'm going to go a little quicker here on a couple of these things. The next slide. Unhealthy, that's a little small. I hope you can read that. When we were going to do this, you were going to be much closer to a TV. So then we had to do all these. The third thing that causes stress, or that causes anxiety and depression from a practical standpoint, is unhealthy relationships. We are, as humans, designed to be in relationship. We are, by God, created to be in a relationship. And a recent study from Ireland and the USA found that negative social interactions in relationships, especially with partners and spouses, increase the risk of depression, anxiety, and even suicidal thoughts. Think about this for a second. How much of our lives are geared around relationships? How much of your life is geared around relationships? Some are romantic, right? Intimate in nature. Some are work-related. Some are familial with family. Some are friends. Some are personal and bros and our girlfriends and all these kind of things, right? But our data points, most of our life is spent in some form of relationship. See, an unhealthy relationship, it heightens or hires our anxiety and depression. It increases our negative thoughts, and it adds undue pressure. When we're in unhealthy relationships, that can take form in many ways, but an unhealthy relationship in some form or fashion is constantly telling me I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I need to do more. It takes, but it never gives. But you see, there's something in us that knows we're designed for relationship. One of the things we talk about, or I've talked about, not often, but in times, for people, often it can be so confusing why somebody who's in a domestic violence relationship stays. Because from the outside looking in, for many of us, we go, hey, what are you doing? Common sense. If that person's hitting you, get out of the relationship. But it's not that simple, is it? If that person's verbally abusing you, get out of the relationship. But it's not that simple, is it? You see, there's a stigma in our brain, a focal point in our brains that tells us something. It is good to be in relationship. And we would rather be in bad relationship than no relationship at all. I would rather be in bad relationship than alone. And for us, the hard part is this, realizing what that unhealthy relationship is actually damaging and causing in us. See, I'm not making light of this, and I'm not poking at anybody who maybe falls into that category, because I think it affects a lot of us. I get it. I mean, I don't get it fully. I don't want to assume. But I understand the concept, right? The idea of being alone in this world is more terrifying than, for a lack of a better term, there's a reason we have a saying, right? The devil I know. At least I know what that is. At least I know what is happening in that relationship. To be alone, I don't know. And so instead of forming relationships that uplift, healthy relationships, they lower our anxiety. They lower our depression. They higher our self-esteem. A healthy relationship uplifts me, builds me up, gives me greater empathy. It's a cooperative relationship, and it even has data points that we've seen, and I can show you the research, that even actually strengthens your immune system. Because you're naturally in a positive, more upbeat, uplifting life. And so one of the things for us when we think about this idea of relationships is this. We so often tie our worth, our value, our self-esteem to the relationships that we have. And that often comes at a cost to our overall well-being. So one of the things I want to challenge you with tonight to begin thinking about is this. Do you fall into that realm? Do you fall into, and I'm not just talking intimate partners here. Do you fall into the realm of, you know what, I know I've got 2 or 3 friends that are just absolutely toxic. But they're my friends, and I get them, and I understand them. Well, maybe. But is it always taking? Is it ever giving? I'm not telling you to abandon everybody in your life, okay? But what I am saying is, you want to maybe know why there's some anxiety and depression beginning to set in? Look at the relationships in your life. Look at the people you surround yourself with. If it's toxic, if it's harmful, if it's demeaning, maybe, just maybe, it's causing these things in your life. Relationships, and we're going to talk about here in a couple of weeks, how to build healthy relationships, how to look for healthy relationships, and then how to literally actually sit down and build healthy relationships. Tonight, we're just diagnosing the problem. So we understand this idea of unhealthy relationships. Last thing, we got to move a little bit quicker. We're going to be here till midnight. I'm sorry. Number 4, because we haven't even got to the Jesus stuff yet. Number 4, poor time management. According to Acuity Training, less than 1 in 5 people have a proper time management system. I think this is one of the biggest things. I mean, they're all big, but this is one of the least talked about and probably one of the things. If I was to ask you this right now, how do you manage your time? What would you say to me? Do you have a plan? I think for most of us, we have too much going on. We're overextended, we're overwhelmed, we're overworked, and people have no plan and no management of their day, their week, their month, or their year. How many of us have said something like this? If I was to ask you right now, hey, what does Friday look like for you? Would you say something similar of this? I'm just taking it a day at a time, honestly, right now, Pastor. I can't even think about tomorrow. I'm just trying to get to dinner, right? How many of you would say, hey, you know what? If I was to ask you, hey, what does next Monday look like for you? I can't even think about Thursday, right? I can't even think about tonight, much less 4 days from now. See, we use that phrase, right? Like, I can't even think about it. I don't even know what's going on, right? I can't even think about it tomorrow. Is that ever meant positively? Of course not. Now, we joke about it, and we laugh about it, and we make light of it. But what you're in essence saying is this. I am so either disorganized and unplanned, or I am so busy and so overwhelmed that I can't even think about tomorrow. That sounds debilitating. That sounds stressful. That sounds something that would make me a little anxious. See, what I want to think about is this. If you're not managing your time, you're not managing yourself. If your time is managing you, you are not in control of your life. I don't mean that rudely. I mean to begin to think about, you want to know why you're anxious and depressed? Because you don't even know what you're doing tomorrow. You've either got so much going on, or you're so in love, disorganized, that you can't even think 12 hours in advance. And then we go, I can't figure out why I'm so anxious and depressed. I can't figure out what's going on in my life. See, what they found in this study was this. 1 in 5 had a proper time management system. What does that mean? It's not that they had every detail, every minute, every thought, everything planned, organized, fixed. And we're going to talk about in 3 weeks what's called the time management matrix. How you can take your life and the things you know about and you can put them into categories to help you. And we're going to look at that in a few weeks. But one of the things I want you to think about is this idea, right? That if you aren't managing your time, you're not managing yourself. Many of us, we don't know how to say no. We don't know how to say no. Why? Because what we just talked about a minute ago, we're people pleasers. And so what ends up happening is I schedule myself for 34 hours in a 24-hour day. That would make me stressed and depressed. And you know what else it does? It makes it an unachievable day. You cannot do 34 hours worth of work in a 24-hour day, I'm pretty sure. So what does that then happen? What happens to us in that moment? Here's what you need to understand, guys. You are not machines. You're not a machine. You cannot run constantly all the time forever. Because if you keep trying to burn that engine, if you keep trying to go, you will give out, you will wear out, and you will burn out. You cannot just go all the time. There has to be a management of my life. And when I'm not disciplined in my life, and when I'm not disciplined in how I manage my life, my time begins to manage me. You ever look around and be like, how did I get here? What is going on? I didn't know I was doing this today, but here I am. Just kind of to and fro. So one of the things I want to challenge you with to think about is this. What does your time management look like in your life? Do you have a system? You can't plan for everything, and I'm not telling you to. But if you have a spouse, do you and your spouse have calendars? Are you organized? Do you have things set up? Do you talk? Do you communicate? If you're single, do you have priorities? All these things that we're going to talk about in a little bit later. One of the things to look at is this idea of our time management. And so in that vein, in that concept then, what we're going to start to look at in next week in some of these unfolding is, what does this mean then? What does it mean that our negative thinking, our stress, our relationships, and our time management are causing us to feel this anxiety, depression, these kind of things? What do I do about it? How do I correct it? That's great that you told me how messed up I am, Pastor. Okay, I get it. We got to diagnose the problem first. I promise it's going to get more fun. Okay. But now that you've told me this, what do we do? How does this look? Where do we go? So on and so forth. We're going to talk about some of these tools to help develop our lives in these areas. So I do want to take just a minute to go to the next part of this. Scriptural component of this. I am a pastor. We are going to talk about Jesus. So we've talked about the physical side, right? This idea of stress, time management, so on and so forth. But the Bible also talks to us in Jeremiah chapter 17. It gives us a really good picture of why we're stressed and depressed from a spiritual standpoint. So if you can go to that next slide. So as we said, there's 40 million U.S. adults who struggle with some form of anxiety and depression. Three main causes that I see in Scripture. One is self-reliance. Two is loneliness. And three is just straight up sin. So what I want to talk about these three things, and we'll go a little bit quicker on this part. I promise I'm not going to keep you here for another hour. These three things that what I want to talk about here that contribute to our stress. If we come to then, number one, this idea of self-reliance. So in Jeremiah chapter 17, I want to read two verses for you. Jeremiah chapter 17, starting in verse 5. Excuse me. Jeremiah 17, verse 5 says this, "Thus says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man, who makes flesh his strength, whose heart turns away from the Lord. He is like a shrub in the desert, and shall not see any good come. He shall dwell in the parched places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land." You hear those verses? Says the Lord, cursed is the man who trusts in man, basically who trusts in himself. It makes flesh, makes himself his strength, whose heart is away from the Lord. He is not but a shrub in the desert, and shall not see any good come. He will dwell in parched places of the wilderness, in an uninhabited salt land. So we think about this idea in the Bible of self-reliance. And it gives us two ideas here. To trust in our human resources or to trust in divine resources. You know, you and I, we live in a very independent culture. We are very independent and separated from each other. We take care of our own. We work hard and then we work harder. Trust yourself. As Nike would say, right? Just do it. Just get it done. You can take care of it on your own. If things go wrong or they get hard, what are we told to do? Pick ourselves up, by our bootstraps. Hey, I see you're down. I see that's hard for you, right? Just pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep going. That's some of the most dumbest logic I've ever heard in my life. I'm just going to be honest with you. If me doing myself and trusting in myself got me into this mess to begin with, why should I pick myself up by my own bootstraps and keep trying to do it? I'm just going to make it worse. But for whatever reason, Grandpa told me one day, just pick myself up by my bootstraps, and I'm supposed to live by that philosophy. Now, I'm not dogging Grandpa here, right? But my point is, that got me into the pickle to begin with. Trusting in myself. Thinking that I'm enough to do this. It sounds good in theory, but it leaves us trusting in ourselves and our own abilities. Why would we keep pressing forward in our own power? If you can read that quote, I love this quote. It says, when people do not trust in God to be who he claims to be, they run from the only source that can save. When people do not trust God to be who he claims to be, they run from the only source that can save. What's the spiritual problem of my anxiety and depression? Self-reliance. I'm enough. I can do it. I'll figure it out. And then when I'm not enough, when I can't do it, when I can't figure it out, guess what? I get really anxious because who can help me? I start to get really depressed because if I can't do it, nobody can do it. I'm better than all of you, right? That's what I'm better than all these other people, and if I can't figure it out, nobody can. So then I get anxious. I get depressed. I begin to get like verse 5, Jeremiah 17. Cursed is the man who trusts in man, who makes flesh his strength, whose heart turns away from the Lord. Verse 5 tells us that this person is cursed. There is no strength found in him to combat these real problems. Think about that for a second. Of all the stress, the negative thinking, the bad choices, the lack of time, all these things that we go through, how much of that is a direct result of our own bad choices? I mean, I know it's fun to blame God. It's easy. Oh, it's his fault. He doesn't care about me. He doesn't love me. If he really cared, he wouldn't have had this happen. No, you're just dumb. And you made a bad choice, and now you're having to live with that consequence. At least that's what I tell myself. That's that negative thinking, right? The reality of it is this, guys. When we trust in ourselves more, and I fully believe this, more than God, we set ourselves up for failure. Now, most of us in here, myself included, probably would never admit that we do that. Well, of course I trust God. He's, me and him. I would never turn my back on that. I would never not do that. What's the last crisis you went through? How many things did you try to do on your own before you went to your knees? The last hard thing in your life that you went through, how many man-made solutions did you try to find to fix it before you went to the Lord? So don't tell me you don't have self-reliance. What if we flip that script? What if we began to realize that, quote, the only one who can actually save me is Jesus? Maybe he shouldn't be my last resort, but my first. So as I begin to rethink what it means to not be self-reliant, but dependent on God for who is all things, it begins to change this thought process. You see, because this epidemic of self-reliance, almost really what it is a version of making ourselves little g gods. I'm a strong, independent woman. Not me, literally, right? Like you all, right? I'm a man, right? I can figure it out. I'll take care of it on my own. I don't need no help. I got this. We make ourselves versions of little g gods, all sustaining, all capable, and it creates this false sense of security in us. And it works as long as you're enough. But the moment that you're not, guess what happens? That tower of cards comes crumbling down. And you're faced with a reality that just because you got a participation trophy as a kid doesn't mean you have it all figured out. And it's not a bad thing. It means there's actually one who can do something about it for us. And we have to learn to trust in him. Ask yourself today, is that you? Are you dependent on yourself and your own abilities, on what you can accomplish? Because that self-reliance, you know what it leads us to, guys? That's a great idea in theory. I'm enough, I'm strong, I can take care of myself. But what it leads us to is the next slide. Oh, that's the quote I just talked about. You can go on. It leads us to loneliness. It leads us to loneliness. I bet, and I'm not going to poll in here right now, I bet if I was to ask everybody in here, how do you feel lonely? Almost every one of you would raise your hands. If I was to ask you, do you feel like you have 1, 2, let's get crazy, 3 people in your life that you can really count on? Some of you might. Most of you, maybe. Let me ask you this. Those people that you can really count on, do they really know everything that's going on inside your head and your heart? See, my point is this. We are very isolated by definition and by culture. And that idea of self-reliance being enough leads us naturally to be lonely. We are the most overstimulated, disconnected culture ever. We have more connectability with anybody. I can talk to somebody right now in China if I wanted. I could watch a video of somebody in Bangladesh. I could see photos of Instagram or whatever of somebody at the Eiffel Tower if I wanted, and probably have a 3D video show me all through it. We are the most connected world the world has ever been, and yet suicide, depression, and anxiety are at an all-time high. We have more access to people than ever, and yet people are more lonely than ever before. Because just maybe we've created a superficial, surface level society. We like people's posts, we comment, we check in every now and then, but we've lost the sense of what it means to be in healthy relationship. And because I'm designed to be in relationship, and all I know is unhealthy relationship, and I've been told my whole life I need to be self-reliant and I need to be enough and I need to pick myself up and I need to do these things. It's created in me a loneliness that I'm not really comfortable talking about. And I maybe don't want to admit to myself. Not me literally, in general. You see, people today are lonely. And what does that loneliness lead to? Disrupted sleep patterns, elevated blood pressure, and increased cortisol. And cortisol is a stress hormone. The more lonely you are, the more stressed out you get. The more isolated you become, the more anxious and depressed you get. Now, I'm not saying you don't need to be alone and have your alone time. I'm not saying you don't need to be doing all these things or have to be at the center of the party all the times. What I'm saying is this: you are designed for relationship. You are designed for kinship and friendship on all levels. Intimate, relational, just professional. You are designed for relationship. You're not designed to walk alone. God himself tells us in Genesis chapter 2, it was not good for man to be alone. He needed a partner. So do we. And Jeremiah, look back here at verse 6 of Jeremiah 17, at this picture of isolation. Jeremiah 17, verse 6. Says he's talking about this shrub that's basically alone in the desert. It's a metaphor, right, for us. He's a shrub in the desert. It shall not see any good come. He shall dwell in the parched places of the wilderness in an uninhabited salt land. It's not a very pretty picture. It's not a very uplifting image of what it looks like when I trust in myself. Verse 5 says, cursed is the man who trusts in himself, who makes his man his strength. Why? He is like a shrub, a little shrub in the middle of a barren wasteland, in the middle of the Sahara Desert, just crying out for water, crying out for relief. When I trust in myself, I am a shrub in the desert crying out for relief. Somebody, where are you? Help me. Take care of me. What's going on? And some of you right now may feel like that very thing. I feel alone. I feel isolated. I feel like nobody gets me. Nobody understands me. Nobody cares about me. I want to tell you right now 2 things. 1, those are lies straight from the pits of hell. 2, I do. But here's the kicker. I don't know what you're going through until you're ready to talk about it. I don't know how to walk you through and take you by the hand and pick you up and throw you on my back and walk through the fire together. Until you talk about it. People are hurting. You may be hurting. And you may feel very lonely right now. And some of you are like, I am not talking to this random dude. I will give you my wife. She's good at talking. Okay? Or somebody else in this church. Or you may have somebody that you know you can reach out to. Here's my point in this. Loneliness kills. Loneliness destroys. And the truth of the matter is this. Nobody's okay being alone. We just pretend that we are. Because we're scared to admit that we're hurting on the inside. And I want to tell you right now, I see you, I hear you, and I want you to know we are building a culture here that says, come as you are. Be a part of this family. Nobody has to walk alone. And so this loneliness, I'm starting to preach, I'm sorry. This loneliness here is an expression of my anxiety and depression when I'm trusting in myself instead of trusting in God. Because the reality of it is this, that loneliness doesn't just transfer to people, it transfers to God. Because people have failed me, God must fail me too. Because people aren't taking care of me, how can I know that God will? And we begin to transfer how we view people into how we view the Lord. And because they're not enough, we begin to ask ourselves, is he? I want to tell you right now, tonight, if you feel like verse 6, a shrub in the desert, I want to ask you something. What are you building your house on? There's a beautiful picture in Matthew chapter 7. I'm not going to turn there, and we don't have to preach the whole thing. But in Matthew chapter 7, it gives us a story of two different people. One builds his house on the sand, and one builds his house on the rock. And the idea of this story in Matthew chapter 7 is this. As the story progresses, this guy builds his house on the sand. The other builds his house on the rock. The storms and the waves and the seas come, and basically in essence, all of the bad life comes. And the one who built his house on the sand, which quakes and moves and flows and isn't solid and isn't firm, the one who built his house on a false foundation, when life gets hard, the house crumbles. See, that false foundation is me, is you. A false sense of security that says, I can figure it out, I'm enough, I'll do it. When life gets hard, I begin to realize I'm not enough. And life crumbles. But the house that's built on the Lord, I'm not trying to be cheesy, I'm not trying to preach at you, I'm trying to tell you the truth from real life experience. But by the grace of God, when the storms of life come, they can withstand. So, what are you building your life on? Last thing tonight. Next slide. Sin. Sin, this idea of sin. At the root of everything we're talking about is sin. From Adam and Eve to Cain and Abel and all throughout history, we see the consequence and penalty of sin. Humanity is sinful, broken, and unable to fix itself. For those who are self-reliant, alone, and hurting, the real problem of what we all face is sin. I like this concept here. Broken things cannot create completeness. What do I mean by that? You and I, we're broken. We hurt. We're sinful. We are imperfect. That's not rocket science. I think we all know that. But here's the reality of what we do as people. We rely on other broken things to make us whole. I'm hurting. I'm struggling. If I could just find the right man, my life would be so much better, right? I'm hurting. I'm struggling. If my wife would just such and such, then I wouldn't have to feel this way anymore. Life is hard. I'm struggling. I'm broken. I'm desperate. If that church down the street would just be better, then my life wouldn't be this way. And what we do is we spend our whole lives trying to get broken things to fix broken things. I'm not a mathematician, but that math doesn't add up. Brokenness cannot come but by something that is whole and complete and perfect. And I tell you this tonight to say this. For those of us who are struggling right now, walking through. Maybe it is anxiety and depression. Maybe it is marital relationships. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it is finances. Maybe it is all these other things. What it stems from is this idea that, are you pursuing Christ? And I want to be clear here. Just because you're pursuing Christ doesn't mean your bank account's going to get bigger tomorrow. Okay? Just because you're pursuing Christ doesn't mean that life is going to fix itself and all these things are going to happen. What it does mean is this: when I know that I'm not enough and I'm struggling, I know I can count on the one who is. Are you walking in these things? I'll close tonight with this story. There's a story called, and I shared this in Sunday school, I think last week or a week ago, something. There's a story called Footprints in the Sand. And in essence, I mean, I'm going to butcher it, my own version a little bit, but in essence, it says this: Jesus and this person are walking along the beach, and there's two sets of footprints in this person's life. And as this person's talking about their life and they're talking with Jesus, they see these two footprints, and life's going good, and kids graduated school, and they got a new job, and all these things, and there's two footprints in the sand. But then they went through a season where they lost a family member. And during that season of trial and tribulation, there was only one set of footprints. And they moved on and walked through life, and things went good, and they graduated, and life happened, and they had kids and all these things, and there was two sets of footprints. Then they lost a job. House got foreclosed on. Things began to fall apart, and they looked back at their life, and during that season of their life, there was only one set of footprints in the sand. Then they go back and they go on with life, and things are going pretty good again in life, and so on and so forth, and there was two sets of footprints in the sand. And they go on and they get to the end, and grandpa's not doing well, grandma's not doing well, life happens, people pass away, and this person has to walk through this difficult season in life. Notices again that there was one set of footprints. Ask Jesus, he says, Jesus, I don't understand. Every time in my life when things were going great, you were there with me. But every time life got hard and I couldn't figure it out and I was all alone and I wasn't sure, you left me. Every time my life got hard, there was only one set of footprints in the sand. What kind of God are you? You don't even care about me enough to be with me in those desperate times, those hardest moments of my life. And Jesus just looks at the child and says, child, I didn't leave you. In those moments of trial and tribulation, I carried you. It was my footprints in the sand. See, what I want to encourage you with is this: you will never find greater love, hope, or comfort than in Jesus Christ. You will never find someone who is more dependable, more worthy, more suitable, or more gracious and caring than Jesus. If I was to ask you right now, nobody knows you better than you. Even your closest relationship on this planet doesn't know you as well as you know yourself. There are things you've probably never told anybody. Things you've thought that never left your mouth. Nobody knows you better than you. We agree to that? How many hairs are on your head right now? Think about that. If I was there, nobody knows you better than you. How many hairs do you have on your head? You have no clue. Do you know the Bible tells us in Matthew that Jesus knows you so well, he knows every hair on your head. That is not a God who doesn't care about you. That is not a God who doesn't love you. That is a God that knows you better than you know yourself. And he's given us a blueprint on how to battle the fallen things of this world. And so tonight, as we think about this and we wrap this up here, we're going to kill the live. We're going to kill the live. I'm going to take 5 minutes.